Dr. Marcus Webb pushed his glasses up his nose and stared at the computer screen. The numbers made no sense. For 3 days, the gravitational sensors at the Atacama Desert Observatory had been picking up strange readings. The equipment was new, expensive, and supposedly perfect. But the data it showed was impossible. Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. He had been working for 18 hours straight, checking and rechecking every calculation. The other scientists had gone home hours ago, convinced that the machines were broken. Dr. Helen Price, facility director, had already called the tech support team to come fix the sensors tomorrow, but Marcus could not let it go. He had spent his entire career studying gravity, and these readings were unlike anything he had ever seen. The patterns were too regular, too perfect to be natural. It looked like something was bending space itself in controlled waves. He walked to the window and looked out at the dark desert. The night sky was clear, filled with more stars than most people ever saw. The observatory was built here specifically because there were no city lights to interfere with their work. It was the perfect place to study the universe. Marcus turned back to his computer and ran the analysis program one more time. The same impossible data appeared on his screen. According to the sensors, massive objects were moving through space. Near Earth, but they were invisible to every other detection method. Radar showed nothing. Optical telescopes saw nothing. Only the gravitational sensors detected their presence. He picked up his phone and almost called Dr. Price, but stopped. She would just tell him to go home and get some sleep. She would say, the machines were broken, and that was that. Marcus put the phone down and looked at the data again. The objects were huge. Each one had to be at least 10 kilometers long to create gravitational effects this strong. They were moving in formation, like a fleet of ships. But no human technology could build anything that large. And the way they bent space around themselves was beyond anything Earth scientists understood. Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert night air. What if the sensors were not broken? What if something really was out there? He spent the next hour trying to track the object's movement. They seemed to be getting closer to Earth, but they were moving slowly, almost carefully, like they were studying the planet before making their next move. At exactly 3:47 a.m., every screen in the observatory went black. Then they came back on, but now they showed something that made Marcus's blood run cold. The gravitational readings had changed completely. The objects were no longer hiding. They were right there, hanging. In space above Earth's major cities, Marcus grabbed his phone and called Dr. Price. It rang 6 times before she answered. Marcus, do you know what time it is? Ellen, you need to get down here right now. Something is happening. The sensors are broken, Marcus. We've been through this. They're not broken. There are ships in orbit. Huge ships. They're right above. New York, London, Tokyo, everywhere. Dr. Price was quiet for a moment. Marcus, you need to go home and get some sleep. You're not thinking clearly. Turn on the news, Marcus said. Please, just turn on the news. He heard her moving around. Then the sound of a television turning on. Then he heard her gasp. Oh my God, she whispered. Marcus looked at his own computer screen, which now showed live news feeds from around the world. Massive dark shapes hung in the sky above. Every major city on Earth, they were exactly where his gravitational sensors had detected them. The ships were enormous, easily 20 kilometers long, and they blocked out the stars behind them. People were running in the streets. Cars were crashing as drivers looked up instead of watching the road. Emergency sirens wailed in every major city. The world had gone from normal to chaos in less than an hour. I'll be there in 20 minutes, Dr. Price said, and hung up. Marcus could not take his eyes off the news feeds. The ships were beautiful in a terrifying way. They were smooth and dark, with no visible weapons or engines. They just hung there in perfect silence, as if gravity itself held them in place. Then, at exactly 4:15 a.m., every television and radio station on Earth received the same message. The transmission came in perfect English, Chinese, Spanish, and dozens of other languages simultaneously. People of Earth, the voice said. It was calm and cold, like a teacher talking to young children. We are the Zephyrian Empire. They've come to claim your world. You have 72 hours to surrender completely. Your governments will transfer all authority to us. Your military forces will stand down. People will accept our rule without resistance. The voice paused. In that silence, Marcus could hear his own heart beating. If you refuse, we will destroy your cities one by one until you submit. Do not attempt to fight us. We have conquered 47 worlds before yours. Your technology is primitive compared to ours. Your weapons cannot harm our ships. Your only choice is to accept your fate or watch your civilization burn. The transmission ended. The news anchors tried to speak, but most of them just stared at their cameras in shock. The world had just learned that it was not alone in the universe, and that the neighbors were not friendly. Marcus sat in his chair and looked at his gravitational sensors. The data was still flowing in, showing him exactly how the alien ships worked. Their technology was incredible, but it was also creating patterns that worried him. The way they bent space was leaving tiny distortions, like cracks in reality itself. He had 72 hours to figure out what those cracks meant. Something told him that understanding them might be the key to saving Earth. Dr. Helen Price arrived at the observatory just as the sun began to rise over the desert mountains. She found Marcus still sitting at his computer, surrounded by empty coffee cups and pages of handwritten calculations. He had not moved from his chair in over 6 hours. "Marcus, you look terrible," she said, setting down a bag of breakfast sandwiches. "Have you eaten anything?" Marcus looked up at her with bloodshot eyes. "Helen, I think I know how their ships work, and I think they're in serious trouble." "What do you mean?" "They just threatened to destroy our entire planet." Marcus pointed to his computer screen, which showed a complex diagram of gravitational waves. "Look at this data. Their ships create controlled gravity fields to move through space. It's incredible technology, far beyond anything we have. But there's a problem." Dr. Price sat down next to him and studied the screen. Physicist in her own right, but the mathematics Marcus was showing her were unlike anything she had seen before. Every time they use their gravity drive, they create these tiny tears in space-time, Marcus continued. The tears are microscopic, but they're not healing properly. Instead, they're spreading. What does that mean? It means their technology is slowly breaking down the fabric of reality itself, and they don't know it's happening. Dr. Price stared at the data. "You sure about this?" "I've been checking the calculations all night. The pattern is clear. Each ship creates hundreds of these micro-tears every time it moves. Multiply that by 47 conquered worlds, and you're talking about thousands of years of accumulated damage to space-time." Before Dr. Price could respond, they heard vehicles approaching outside. Through the window, they saw military trucks pulling up to the observatory. Soldiers in combat gear jumped out and began setting up a perimeter around the building. A woman in a military uniform walked through the front door without knocking. She was tall and confident, with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. "Dr. Webb, come Commander Lisa Torres, United Earth Defense Force. We need to talk." Marcus saved his work and turned to face her. "How did you know I was here?" "Been monitoring all major scientific facilities since the aliens arrived. Your gravitational sensors are the only equipment on Earth that detected them before they revealed themselves. That makes you very important right now." Commander Torres pulled up a chair and sat down. "Our best military analysts have spent the last 6 hours studying these alien ships. We can't find any weaknesses. Their energy shields absorb everything we throw at them. Their weapons can level city blocks in seconds. Conventional warfare is useless against them." "What about nuclear weapons?" Dr. Price asked. "We tried. 3 hours ago, the Russians launched 2 intercontinental ballistic missiles. At the ship over Moscow, the missiles just disappeared when they hit the ship's shields. Not exploded, not deflected, disappeared." Marcus felt sick. How many people died? None from the missiles. But the aliens retaliated by destroying a military base outside the city. 2,000 soldiers, gone in 10 seconds. Then they sent another message saying that any further attacks would result in civilian casualties. Commander Torres leaned forward. "Dr. Webb, we need to know everything you've learned about their technology. Any weakness, any flaw, anything we can use against them." Marcus looked at his computer screen, then back at Torres. Commander, what if I told you that these aliens are not invincible? What if their own technology is slowly killing them and they don't even know it? I'd say you better explain that very quickly. Marcus turned his screen toward Torres and began walking her through his analysis. He showed her the gravitational wave patterns, the space-time distortions, and the mathematical models that predicted what would happen if the damage continued to spread. Their gravity drives are creating cascading failures in the structure of space itself, Marcus explained. Think of space-time like a piece of fabric. Every time they use their technology, they poke tiny holes in that fabric. Over thousands of years, those holes have grown and connected. Eventually, the entire fabric will tear apart. Commander Torres studied the data carefully. She was not a scientist, but she understood the implications. How long do we have? It depends on how much more damage they do. If they continue using their technology at current levels, the cascade effect will reach critical mass within a few years. When that happens, entire star systems will collapse into themselves, including ours. Including ours. Dr. Price had been quietly reviewing Marcus's calculations. Marcus, are you saying that these aliens have been accidentally destroying the galaxy for centuries? That's exactly what I'm saying. And the worst part is, they think their technology is perfect. They've conquered 47 worlds with it. Why would they question something that's worked so well? Commander Torres stood up and began pacing. So we have two problems. First, they want to conquer Earth in the next 66 hours. Second, their technology is going to destroy everything anyway. There's a third problem, Marcus said quietly. I don't think we can stop them with weapons. But I might be able to. Save them from themselves. What do you mean? Marcus pulled up another screen showing the observatory's quantum communication array. This facility has the most powerful quantum transmitter on Earth. It was designed to send messages to deep space exploration probes. But I think I can modify it to send a different kind of signal. What kind of signal? A correction algorithm. Mathematical instructions that would show the aliens how to fix their technology before it's too late. Commander Torres stared at him. You want to help the aliens who are trying to conquer us? I want to save the galaxy from being torn apart. That includes Earth. Dr. Price looked up from her calculations. Marcus, even if you're right about the space-time damage, why would the aliens listen to us? They think we're primitive. Marcus smiled for the first time in hours, because the mathematics don't lie, and because sometimes the most primitive solution is the most elegant one. Commander Torres checked her watch. How long would it take you to prepare this transmission? 12 hours to modify the array? Another 6 to encode the correction algorithms? That gives us 48 hours before their deadline. Do it! As Commander Torres left to report back to her superiors, Marcus and Dr. Price began working on what might be humanity's last hope. Outside, the alien ships continued their silent vigil over Earth's cities, unaware that their salvation might come from the very planet they planned to conquer. Dr. Amy Carter arrived at the observatory 18 hours before the alien deadline. She was Marcus's former research partner from MIT, and Commander Torres had flown her in from Boston on a military transport. Amy was one of the few people on Earth who could understand Marcus's work well enough to help him complete it in time. Marcus, you look like you haven't slept in a week, Amy said, as she walked into the main laboratory. The room was now filled with military equipment and technicians working alongside the scientists. 36 hours, Marcus replied without looking up from his calculations. I've had maybe 4 hours of sleep in the last 36 hours. Amy looked at the massive quantum array that dominated the center of the room. Military engineers had been modifying it according to Marcus's specifications. Thick cables snaked across the floor, connecting new power generators and signal amplifiers to the original equipment. So you really think this will work? Amy asked. Sitting down next to Marcus at his computer station. The math is solid, Marcus said. The alien technology creates predictable patterns of space-time distortion. If we can transmit the correct mathematical formula, their computers should be able to verify the problem and implement the solution. Captain Jake Morrison, Commander. Torres' technical liaison walked over to them. who's a young Air Force officer with a background in communications technology. "Dr. Webb, we've finished the modifications to your array. But I have to ask you again. Are you absolutely sure about this plan?" Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. "Captain, what's our alternative? Every military force on Earth has tried to attack these ships. Nothing works. Their shields are impenetrable. Their weapons are devastating. Fighting them is suicide. But helping them seems insane," Captain Morrison replied. "They're here to conquer us. Why would we give them better technology?" Dr. Carter looked up from the technical specifications she was reviewing, because their current technology is going to destroy everything anyway. At least this way, there's a chance some of us survive. Commander Torres entered the room carrying a tablet with the latest updates from around the world. Her expression was grim. The situation is getting worse. The aliens have moved their ships into lower orbit over 12 major cities. They're clearly preparing for something. "Any more attacks from our side?" Marcus asked. "The Chinese tried an electromagnetic pulse weapon 2 hours ago. Same result as the nuclear missiles. It just disappeared when it hit their shields. Aliens destroyed a naval base in response." Amy shook her head. "They're not even trying to communicate with us. They just make demands and destroy things when we don't comply." "That's what bothers me the most," Marcus said. "These aliens have conquered 47 worlds, but they've never learned to negotiate. They just overwhelm their enemies with superior technology. It's made them overconfident." Captain Morrison checked his watch. 17 hours until their deadline. "How much longer do you need to prepare the transmission?" "The array is ready," Marcus replied. "I just need to finish encoding the correction algorithms into a format their computers can process." "Another 6 hours? Maybe 7? Commander Torres set down her tablet and looked at the quantum array. "Dr. Webb, I need you to understand something. If this doesn't work, if the aliens interpret your transmission as an attack, they'll retaliate. Immediately. Every major city on Earth could be destroyed within minutes." "I understand the risks," Marcus said quietly. "Do you?" "Because I'm not just talking about the cities. I'm talking about the complete annihilation of human civilization. Every person you've ever known, every place you've ever been, gone forever." Stopped typing and looked at Commander Torres. "And if we do nothing, the space-time cascade will eventually tear apart the entire galaxy. Every planet, every star, every living thing in hundreds of solar systems. The choice isn't between saving Earth and risking Earth. The choice is between saving everything and losing everything." Dr. Carter had been quietly running calculations on her own computer. "Marcus, I've been checking your work on the cascade. Effect. The mathematics are correct, but I think you're being optimistic about the timeline." "What do you mean?" "The damage to space-time is accelerating. Each new tier makes the existing ones spread faster. If these aliens continue using their technology at current levels, we have months, not years, before the cascade reaches critical mass." Captain Morrison stared at her. "Months? Maybe less. The presence of their entire fleet in Earth's solar system is putting enormous stress on local space-time. Every minute they stay here makes the problem worse." Commander Torres felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. She had been trained to fight enemies, not save them. But the science was clear. Humanity's survival depended on helping the very beings who threatened to destroy them. "All right," she said finally. "We proceed with Dr. Webb's plan. I want backup protocols in place. If the aliens interpret our transmission as hostile, I want every nuclear submarine on Earth ready to launch everything they have." "Commander, the nuclear weapons won't work," Marcus reminded her. "I know, but if we're all going to die anyway, I want to go down fighting." Amy looked at Marcus with concern. "Are you sure you can handle the stress of the transmission?" "The quantum array requires precise manual control during the broadcast. One mistake, and the entire signal could be corrupted." "I'll be fine," Marcus said, though he knew he was running on nothing but caffeine and determination. Captain Morrison began coordinating with the military technicians to prepare for the transmission. "Dr. Webb, what exactly will happen when you send this signal?" "The aliens will receive a complete mathematical proof showing the flaws in their technology, along with detailed instructions for fixing the problem. Their computers will verify the calculations within minutes. And then, Marcus paused in his work and looked around the room at all the people who were trusting him with the fate of civilization. And then we find out whether the most advanced military force in the galaxy is smart enough to listen to a primitive human scientist. Outside, the alien ships continued their ominous presence above Earth cities. In 16 hours, humanity would either surrender to conquest or attempt the most desperate gambit in history. Marcus returned to his calculations, knowing that the next few hours of work might determine whether any life in the galaxy would survive to see another day. Fleet Commander Vexahall stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive world below. In all his years of conquest, he had never encountered a species quite like these humans. They were weak, and their technology was laughable, but they kept doing unexpected things. Commander, his science officer reported. The humans are powering up some kind of transmission array in their desert region. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. Vexahall studied the readings on his display screen. Device the humans were activating was crude compared to Zephyrian technology. It was generating quantum frequencies that seemed oddly familiar. Is it a weapon? He asked. Unknown, Commander. The power levels are insufficient to threaten our shields, but the quantum patterns are ... strange. Vexahall had conquered 47 worlds for the Zephyrian Empire. He had seen every type of desperate last stand imaginable. Some species tried to hide. Others fought with primitive weapons. A few attempted to negotiate. But none had ever built something like this in their final hours. How long until our deadline expires? 3 hours and 17 minutes, Commander? Back. At the observatory, Marcus sat at the control station for the quantum array. His hands shook slightly from exhaustion and too much caffeine, but his mind was clear. The correction algorithms were complete and loaded into the transmission buffer. Everything was ready. Commander Torres stood behind him, watching the final preparations. Dr. Webb, are you absolutely certain about this? As certain as I can be, Marcus replied. The mathematics are sound. If the aliens are logical beings, they'll understand what we're showing them. Dr. Carter was monitoring the alien ships through the observatory's sensors. Marcus, their energy signatures are changing. I think they've detected our array powering up. Captain Morrison spoke into his radio headset, coordinating with military units around the world. All stations report ready. Dr. Webb, you have authorization to proceed when ready. Marcus placed his hands on the control console. The quantum array hummed with power behind him, ready to send humanity's message across space to the alien fleet. He thought about everything that had led to this moment. His discovery of the gravitational anomalies. The revelation of the space-time damage, the desperate race against time to find a solution. Beginning transmission in 10 seconds, Marcus announced. On the alien flagship, Vexahall watched his tactical display as the human device reached full power. All weapons target that installation. Destroy it before they can activate whatever weapon they're building, sir. Our strike craft are in position. They can eliminate the target in 45 seconds. Vexahall raised his hand to give the order, then hesitated. Something about this situation felt different. In 47 previous conquests, no species had ever built anything during their final hours except weapons or bunkers. But this device was neither. It was a transmitter. Hold position, he ordered. Let's see what message these humans think is worth dying for. Marcus pressed the activation key. The quantum array discharged its stored energy in a focused beam aimed directly at the alien mothership. The transmission lasted only 37 seconds, but it contained terabytes of mathematical data compressed into quantum-encrypted packets. Transmission complete, Marcus announced. He slumped back in his chair, exhausted. Everything he could do was done. Now they could only wait. On the Zephyrian flagship, the communications officer looked puzzled. Commander, we're receiving a data transmission. From the human installation, it's not a weapon. It's mathematics? Mathematics? Complex calculations, sir. Gravitational field equations, space-time analysis, and what appears to be a technical manual for our own propulsion systems. Vexahall stared at his subordinate. They're sending us information about our own technology. Yes, sir. Gay, and according to our computers, the calculations are correct. More than correct. They're showing us flaws in our systems that our own scientists never detected. The science officer ran the human data through the ship's analysis computers. What he found made his blood run cold. Commander, you need to see this immediately. Vexahol walked over to the science station and looked at the display. The human calculations showed detailed models of space-time distortion around Zephyrion ships. But more importantly, they showed how those distortions were spreading and connecting, creating an unstable matrix that was slowly tearing apart the fabric of space itself. Is this accurate? Vexahol asked. Our computers confirm all calculations, sir. The humans have identified a cascade failure in our gravity drive technology. If left uncorrected, it will eventually cause the collapse of entire star systems. Vexel felt something he had never experienced in 4 decades of military service. Fear. Not fear of an enemy, but fear of what his own people had unknowingly done to the galaxy. How long do we have? According to the human projections, the cascade effect has already reached critical threshold in several systems. We have months, possibly weeks, before it becomes irreversible. The bridge fell silent. Every officer understood the implications. The mighty Zephyrian Empire, conqueror of worlds, had been slowly destroying the galaxy for centuries without knowing it. Sir, the communications officer said quietly, there's more. The humans have included correction algorithms, mathematical formulas that could stabilize our gravity drives and prevent further damage. Vexahol looked at the data scrolling across his screens. The human solution was elegant in its simplicity. So obvious once explained that he wondered how Zephyrian scientists had missed it for so long. Why? He asked aloud. Why would they help us? Came here to conquer their world. The science officer had been studying the human transmission more carefully. Commander, there's a message embedded in the data. Personal communication from the human scientist who created this analysis. Put it on screen. Marcus Webb's face appeared on the main display. He looked tired but determined. Commander of the alien fleet. My name is Dr. Marcus Webb. I am a scientist from the planet you call Earth. I have sent you this information not because I want to help you conquer my world, but because I want to save all worlds from destruction. Your technology is magnificent, but it has a fatal flaw that threatens every living thing in the galaxy. The correction I have provided will save countless civilizations, including both yours and mine. I hope that wisdom and scientific truth will matter more to you than conquest. The choice is yours. The message ended. Vexahol stared at the blank screen for a long moment, then looked at his officers. In 37 seconds, a primitive human had revolutionized Zephyrian science and potentially saved the galaxy. And he had done it not as an act of war, but as an act of compassion. For the first time in his military career, Fleet Commander Vexahol was not sure what to do next. Fleet Commander Vexahol stood alone in his private quarters, staring out at the blue planet below. The deadline had passed 2 hours ago. His orders were clear: begin the conquest of Earth. His weapons were charged and ready. His troops were prepared for deployment. But he had not given the command to attack. Instead, he had done something unprecedented in Zephyrian military history. He had opened a direct communication channel to the human scientist Dr. Marcus. Webb appeared on the communication screen in Vexahol's quarters. The human looked surprised to see him, but not afraid. That impressed Vexahol more than he cared to. Admit, Dr. Webb, Vexahol said, speaking English for the first time in his life. I am Fleet Commander Vexahol of the Zephyrian Empire. I wish to speak with you about your transmission. Marcus adjusted his glasses and leaned forward. Commander, I'm honored that you would contact me directly. Have your scientists had time to verify the calculations? They have. Our computers confirm that your analysis is correct. Our gravity drive technology has been creating space-time instabilities for over 3,000 years. We never knew. Your technology is incredible, Marcus said. My people can barely detect gravitational waves, much less manipulate them. But sometimes an outside perspective can see problems that experts miss. Vexahol was quiet for a moment. Dr. Webb, why did you help us? We came to your world as conquerors. We threatened to destroy your cities. We have killed your people. Would you try to save us? Marcus thought carefully before answering. Because destroying you wouldn't save my people. Your technology was going to tear apart space-time, whether you conquered Earth or not. The only way to save humanity was to save everyone. But there was no guarantee we would listen to you. You risked everything on the hope that we would choose science over conquest. I had to believe that any species advanced enough to build ships like yours would be intelligent enough to recognize the truth when they saw it. Vexahol walked to his desk and activated a holographic display showing the Zephyrian Empire's territory. Dozens of star systems were marked in red, indicating critical spacetime instability. Your calculations show that 17 of our colony worlds are in immediate danger. Cascade effects are already beginning in the Kelver system. We have 48 hours to implement your corrections, or we will lose 3 billion Zephyrian citizens. Marcus felt sick. I'm sorry. I wish we had detected the problem sooner. You detected it when no one else could. My people have studied our own technology for millennia. We never questioned it because it worked so well. But you looked at it with fresh eyes and saw what we could not. That's what humans do, Marcus said. We question everything, even things that seem to work perfectly. My colleagues thought the gravitational sensors were broken because the readings seemed impossible. But I kept looking because impossible things sometimes turn out to be true. Vexahol had spent his entire career following orders and protocols. The idea of questioning established technology was foreign to him. In Zephyrian society, we perfect our methods and then we follow them. We do not doubt what is proven successful. That's not necessarily wrong, Marcus replied. Your methods conquered the galaxy. But science isn't about perfection. It's about constantly learning and improving. The moment you stop questioning is the moment you stop growing. Is that why your species never developed space travel? Because you were too busy questioning your methods to perfect them? Marcus laughed, surprising himself. Maybe we've been arguing about how to build spaceships for 100 years. We can't agree on the best design, so we keep experimenting with new ideas. Your people found one method that worked and stuck with it, nearly destroyed the galaxy. In the process, but you didn't know. That's the important thing. You weren't trying to cause harm. You were just using the best technology you had. Bexall sat down at his desk and looked at the human scientist on his screen. Dr. Webb, I have been a military commander for 40 years. I have conquered worlds and destroyed enemies. But I have never spoken to a member of a conquered species as an equal. This conversation is teaching me things that for decades of military training did not. What kinds of things? That strength and wisdom are not the same thing. That the most primitive solution can be the most elegant. That sometimes the greatest victory comes from helping your enemies instead of destroying them. Marcus nodded. Commander, what happens now? Are you still planning to conquer Earth? Vexahol was quiet for a long time. My orders are clear. The Zephyrian Empire does not retreat. We do not show weakness. We conquer or we die. But my people are also dying from the space-time cascade. If I continue following my orders, I will save Zephyrian pride and lose Zephyrian lives. If I abandon my orders, I will save lives but break every military tradition my people have ever known. Marcus could hear the conflict in the alien commander's voice. What do you think your people would want you to choose? Pride or survival? Survival, Vexahol said immediately. But they would also want to know that their commander was not weak. Choosing to save lives instead of taking them isn't weakness. It's the hardest choice a leader can make. Vexahol stood up and walked back to the window. Dr. Webb, I am going to do something that no Zephyrian commander has ever done. I'm going to ask for your help. What do you need? Your correction algorithms must be implemented across our entire fleet within the next 24 hours. But the modifications are complex. We need guidance from the scientist who created them. Marcus felt his heart racing. You want me to help you fix your ships? I want you to help me save the galaxy? And in return, I will convince my empire that humanity deserves to join us as equals, not subjects. Join you? Dr. Webb, your people have shown us something we never learned in 3,000 years of conquest. You have shown us that the greatest strength is the willingness to help others, even when they threaten you. The galaxy needs that kind of thinking. Marcus looked around his small observatory, then back at the alien commander who had become humanity's Unlikely savior, Commander. I accept your proposal, but I have one condition. Name it. We work together as partners, not as conqueror and conquered. Human and Zephyrian scientists collaborating to solve problems. No more ultimatums, no more threats. It's just science and cooperation. Vexahall smiled for the first time in years. Webb, I believe you have just described the future of the galaxy. 6 months after the day the world almost ended, Dr. Marcus Webb stood before the Galactic Council on the space station orbiting Proxima Centauri. The massive chamber held representatives from over 200 species, including many that had been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire decades or centuries ago. Marcus still could not believe he was here. The quiet scientist who had spent his career studying gravitational waves was now addressing the leaders of half the galaxy. But the most remarkable thing was not that humans had been invited to join the council. It was that the council existed at all. Honored representatives, Marcus began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's translation systems. 6 months ago, we faced the greatest crisis in galactic history. Today, I am proud to report that the Space-Time Stabilization Project has exceeded all expectations. The holographic display behind Marcus showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Green dots marked star systems where the correction algorithms had been successfully implemented. Red dots showed systems still in danger. When Marcus had first presented this data 3 months ago, most of the map had been red. Now, over 80% showed green. Fleet Commander Vexahall, now serving as the Zephyrian representative to the Council, stood up to address the Assembly. The human correction algorithms have not only stopped the cascade failures, but they have improved our technology beyond anything we thought possible. Our ships now use 60% less energy and travel twice as fast as before. Dr. Amy Carter, who had become the director of the new Interspecies Science Consortium, added her own report. But the real breakthrough isn't the technology, it's the method. We now have over 50 species contributing to each research project. Problems that would have taken decades for one species to solve are being completed in months through collaboration. Marcus looked around the chamber at the diverse gathering of beings. There were the tall, graceful Altarians with their silver skin and large eyes, the stocky, rock-like Terrans from the heavy gravity worlds, the crystalline vegan entities that communicated through light patterns, and dozens of other species that had never worked together before. The human concept of peer review has revolutionized galactic science, announced Dr. Kelleth, the lead scientist from the Altarian Republic. We no longer assume that established methods are perfect. We question everything, test everything, and improve everything. Captain Jake Morrison, now liaison officer between Earth's military and the new Galactic Defense Force, stood to give his report. The integration of human military doctrine with Zephyrian technology has created defensive capabilities that far exceed anything either species could achieve alone. We're not just stronger together, we're smarter together. But it was the next. A speaker who surprised Marcus most. A small, blue-skinned being approached the podium with obvious nervousness. This was Ambassador Yenth from the Rigel colonies, one of the first worlds conquered by the Zephyrians over 2 centuries ago. For 200 years, my people lived under Zephyrian rule, Yenth said, his voice shaking slightly. We thought we would never be free. But the humans showed us something more powerful than freedom. They showed us forgiveness. Marcus remembered the heated debates during the early council sessions. Many of the conquered species had wanted revenge against the Zephyrians. They had suffered under alien rule for generations. But Marcus and his team had argued for a different approach. The Zephyrians made mistakes, Marcus had told the council. Terrible mistakes that caused immense suffering, but they didn't know. Their technology was destroying the galaxy. And when they learned the truth, they chose to change. That's what matters now, not what they did in ignorance, but what they do with knowledge. It had taken months of careful negotiation, but eventually most of the conquered worlds agreed to join the new Galactic Alliance. The alternative, letting the space-time cascade destroy everything, made cooperation the only logical choice. Humans taught us that the greatest strength is admitting when you're wrong. Fleet Commander Vexahall had said during one particularly difficult session, "The Zephyrian Empire was built on the belief that we were always right. That nearly destroyed us all." Now, 6 months later, the results spoke for themselves. The galaxy was not only surviving, but thriving in ways no one had imagined possible. Dr. Marcus Webb concluded his presentation with a personal reflection. "When I first detected those gravitational anomalies, I never imagined where they would lead. I was just a scientist trying to understand strange readings from my instruments. But that's exactly why this alliance works. We approach problems with curiosity instead of assumptions. We ask questions instead of giving orders. We seek understanding instead of dominance." The chamber erupted in applause from beings with hands, tentacles, claws, and other appendages. Marcus felt overwhelmed by the response, but also deeply satisfied. The quiet kid who had spent his childhood asking what if questions had helped reshape the galaxy by never stopping asking them. After the session ended, Marcus found himself standing on the observation deck with Vexahall, looking out at the stars. The former fleet commander had become one of his closest friends. Despite their species having been enemies just months before, "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't detected our ships early?" Vexahall asked. "Every day," Marcus replied, "but I've learned not to focus on what might have been. There are too many new questions to explore, such as..." Marcus pointed to a distant nebula. "We've stabilized space-time in this galaxy, but what about the others? Are there more civilizations out there making the same mistakes we made? Could we help them too?" Vexahall laughed. "Only a human would save one galaxy and immediately start worrying about all the others." "That's what we do," Marcus said with a smile. "We ask impossible questions and then try to find answers." As they watched, a new ship arrived at the station. The first joint human-Cephrian exploration vessel, designed to seek out other civilizations that might need help. Its mission was not conquest or colonization, but education and cooperation. Dr. Marcus Webb, a scientist who had accidentally prevented a war and saved a galaxy, was already planning the next impossible question to investigate. Because in a universe full of wonders and dangers, there would always be more to learn, more to discover, and more to understand. The galaxy had learned that sometimes the most primitive approach was the most advanced one of all.